The girl's face turned purple. A 17-year-old boy's fingers dug into her throat while 30 students watched and filmed. She clawed at his hands. Her legs kicked against the lockers. Nobody helped. Then the school doors exploded open. A man in navy digital camouflage walked through, a German shepherd at his side. The boy didn't release his grip. He should have. That man had spent 12 years hunting terrorists in places most people couldn't pronounce. Now his daughter was dying in front of him. Before we continue, tell us where you're watching from. Subscribe and stay until the end. This story will change how you see courage. The hand around Lily Carter's throat squeezed tighter. "Say it," Brandon Prescott hissed into her face. "Say you're nothing." Lily's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Her 14-year-old body pressed against the cold metal lockers. Her backpack had fallen somewhere. Her books were scattered across the floor. None of that mattered now. Only air mattered, and she couldn't get any. "Come on, say it!" Brandon's grip twisted the collar of her jacket until the fabric cut into her windpipe. "My dad owns this school. My dad owns this town. And you? You're just trash. Say it." Phones surrounded them like a stadium audience. Laughter bounced off the walls. Someone yelled, "World Star!" like this was entertainment. Lily's vision started to blur at the edges. She thought about her father. She thought about her mother's grave. She thought about the text she'd sent 20 minutes ago. "Dad, please come. Please." 3 words, no explanation. She prayed he understood. Brandon Prescott was 17 years old and had never heard the word no in his life. His father, Richard, owned half the commercial property in Ridgemont. His family name was on the gymnasium, the library, and the new science wing. Teachers smiled at him, even when he failed tests. Coaches started him, even when he missed practice. Girls dated him even when he treated them like garbage. He was untouchable. Everyone knew it, including Lily Carter. "You think you can ignore me?" Brandon had cornered her 3 minutes ago. "You think you can walk past me like I don't exist?" "I wasn't ignoring you," Lily had whispered. "I was just going to class." Liar. He'd shoved her against the lockers hard enough to rattle the entire row. "You've been avoiding me for weeks. Ever since you told that counselor I pushed you." "I didn't tell anyone. My dad got a call. The school was asking questions." His face had twisted with genuine rage. "Do you know what happens to people who cause problems for my family?" Now his hand was around her throat, and Lily knew exactly what happened. Madison Chen stood 3 feet away, phone perfectly angled. She was Brandon's girlfriend, pretty, popular, and completely aware that her boyfriend was strangling a freshman. She adjusted the lighting on her screen. "Get her face," someone called out. "Get her face when she cries." Madison zoomed in. Lily's eyes were watering. Not from tears, from oxygen deprivation. Her lips were turning blue. Her fingers had stopped clawing at Brandon's hand. "Bro, she's actually passing out," one of Brandon's friends said. He laughed nervously. "That's kinda sick." "She'll be fine." Brandon's voice was ice cold. "She needs to learn respect." The school's front doors slammed open. Marcus Carter walked through with Ranger at his heel. He was still wearing his Navy working uniform, digital camouflage in forest green and brown. His dark brown hair was cut military short. His jaw was sharp. His eyes were sharper. He'd been at the warehouse when Lily's text came through. 3 words, no context. He'd told his supervisor there was a family emergency and driven 17 minutes in 11. Now he understood why. The crowd didn't notice him at first. Too busy filming. too busy laughing, too busy being exactly the kind of people Marcus had spent his career protecting from threats they couldn't comprehend. Ranger noticed everything. The German shepherd's ears flattened, his body lowered. A growl began building in his chest, low and deep, like thunder rolling over distant mountains. Marcus put a hand on the dog's head. Not yet. He pushed through the crowd. Shoulders parted, backpacks shifted. A few students glanced at him, then did double takes at the uniform. Then he saw his daughter. Lily's face was turning purple. A boy twice her size had his hand wrapped around her throat. She wasn't struggling anymore. Something inside Marcus went very still. Hey! His voice wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. 12 years as a Navy SEAL had taught him that the most dangerous men rarely raise their voices. Volume was for amateurs. Control was for professionals. "Hey," he said again, "let go of my daughter." Brandon looked up. For a moment, genuine confusion crossed his face. Then his eyes flicked to the uniform, to the dog, and something like recognition flickered. But Brandon Prescott had never met a threat he couldn't buy his way out of. His grip loosened slightly, but he didn't let go. "Who the hell are you?" Her father. "Yeah?" Brandon's signature smirk returned. "Well, her father should teach her some manners. We were just talking." Let go. The hallway went dead silent. Even the phones stopped moving. Ranger's growl deepened into something primal. The students nearest to the dog took 3 quick steps backward. Brandon's eyes darted between Marcus and the shepherd. His hand finally released Lily's collar. She collapsed against the lockers, gasping. Marcus was at her side in 2 steps. He caught her before she hit the ground. Her throat was already showing marks, red lines that would become bruises by morning. "Daddy," she wheezed. "I'm sorry. I'm sorry." "Don't apologize. Breathe. Just breathe." He helped her stand. Her legs were shaking. Her entire body was shaking. "Let's go," Marcus said quietly. "We're leaving." Brandon should have let them leave. Years later, people would look back at this moment and wonder, what was wrong with him? What kind of person watches a man rescue his half-strangled daughter and decides to make it worse? The kind of person who's never faced a consequence in his life. "Hey, soldier boy!" Marcus stopped. He didn't turn around. "Better keep that mutt on a leash." Brandon's voice dripped with arrogance. "And your daughter, too. We weren't done talking." Silence. Every student in that hallway held their breath. Marcus turned slowly. His hand was still on Lily's shoulder. His eyes locked onto Brandon with an intensity that made the 17-year-old take an involuntary step backward. "What did you say?" Brandon's friends were shifting uncomfortably now. Madison had lowered her phone. Even the most oblivious bystanders could feel the temperature in the hallway drop. But Brandon Prescott had a reputation to protect. "I said," he started. "I heard what you said." Marcus stepped forward. Just 1 step. "Let me tell you what I heard. I heard a 17-year-old boy threaten my 14-year-old daughter. I heard him assault her. I heard him call my service dog a mutt. And I heard him threaten to do it again. Bro, it was a joke. Do I look like I'm laughing?" Brandon's face paled. Marcus took another step. Ranger moved with him, perfectly synchronized. "I've spent 12 years protecting this country from people who hurt the innocent. I've done things you can't imagine in places you've never heard of. I've watched friends die and carry their bodies home. So let me be very clear with you." He was close enough now that Brandon could see the scars on his hands, could see the way his eyes didn't blink, could see that this wasn't a performance. "If you ever touch my daughter again," Marcus said softly, "there won't be a school board meeting. There won't be a police report. There will just be you and me and the truth of who we really are. Do you understand?" Brandon's mouth opened. Nothing came out. "I asked you a question." "Yeah." The word came out cracked. "Yeah, I understand." "Good." Marcus turned back to Lily. He put his arm around her shoulder and guided her toward the exit. The crowd parted like the Red Sea. Nobody filmed. Nobody laughed. Nobody breathed until the door closed behind them. In the parking lot, Lily broke. The tears came all at once, violent, shaking sobs that seemed to tear themselves from somewhere deep inside her. She clutched her father's uniform and cried the way she hadn't cried since her mother's funeral. "I'm sorry," she kept saying. "I'm so sorry. I didn't want to bother you at work. I tried to handle it myself. I tried." "Stop." Marcus knelt in front of her, both hands on her shoulders. "Look at me. This is not your fault. None of this is your fault. He's been doing this for months, Dad. Every single day. But nobody believes me. The teachers say he's just joking. The counselor said I should try to make friends with him. Nobody. I believe you." Lily's sobs caught in her throat. She stared at her father through swollen eyes. "You do?" "I saw what he did with my own eyes. I saw 30 kids filming it. I saw adults nowhere in sight." His jaw tightened. "This ends today. I promise you." Ranger pressed against Lily's leg, whining softly. She dropped to her knees and wrapped her arms around his neck, burying her face in his fur. "Thank you for coming," she whispered. "Thank you for believing me." Marcus watched his daughter hold on to his dog like a lifeline. He watched the finger marks on her throat darken in the afternoon light. He watched her shoulders shake with relief and trauma and exhaustion, and he made a decision. He didn't know yet how far this would go. He didn't know about Richard Prescott, or the corruption, or the years of buried victims. He didn't know that this hallway confrontation would be the first domino in a chain that would shake the entire town. But he knew one thing with absolute certainty. Nobody would ever hurt his daughter again. The drive home was quiet. Lily sat in the passenger seat with Ranger's head in her lap. She stared out the window at the passing streets, her mind somewhere far away. Marcus kept glancing at her throat. The marks were getting darker. "How long?" he finally asked. She didn't pretend to misunderstand. "Since September?" It was March. 6 months. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I knew what you'd do." She turned to face him. "I knew you'd confront him, and then his dad would get involved, and you'd lose your job, and we can barely pay rent already, Dad. I didn't want to make things worse." Marcus gripped the steering wheel until his knuckles turned white. His 14-year-old daughter had been strangled at school for 6 months, and she hadn't told him because she was trying to protect him. "Lily, I know I should have said something, but Brandon's dad is Richard Prescott. He owns everything. The last kid who complained about Brandon got expelled. The family before that moved out of state. I thought if I just kept my head down." "You thought he'd leave you alone?" "I thought I could survive until graduation." Marcus pulled the car over. He turned off the engine. He turned to face his daughter. "Listen to me. I don't care how powerful Richard Prescott is. I don't care how much money he has. I don't care if he owns the entire city. Nobody has the right to put their hands on you. Do you understand?" Lily nodded slowly. "But what can we do? He has lawyers. He has connections. He has everything." "He doesn't have the truth." Marcus's voice was firm. "And he doesn't have us." When they got home, Marcus called in sick to work for the first time in 3 years. His supervisor understood. Family emergency was all Marcus had to say. He spent the next hour documenting everything. He photographed Lily's throat every 15 minutes as the bruises developed. He had her write down every incident she could remember. Dates, times, witnesses. He recorded a video statement of her describing what happened today. Evidence, he explained when she asked. We're going to do this the right way. By the book. And if the book doesn't work? Marcus paused. Then we figure out another way. At 6 o'clock, his phone rang. Unknown number. He answered. Mr. Carter? The voice was smooth, professional, and somehow condescending all at once. This is Richard Prescott. I believe we need to have a conversation about today's incident. Marcus felt his jaw clench. I agree. Wonderful. I understand emotions are running high. These things happen with children. I'm sure we can come to an arrangement that benefits everyone. An arrangement? Of course. I'm a reasonable man. I'm prepared to make a generous offer to compensate for any misunderstanding. Your son strangled my daughter until she couldn't breathe. That's not a misunderstanding. That's assault. A pause. When Richard spoke again, the smooth veneer had cracked slightly. Mr. Carter, I'm trying to be civil, but let me be direct. I am a man of considerable resources. You are a warehouse worker with a military pension and a questionable future. If you pursue this publicly, I will destroy you. I will tie you up in court for years. I will make sure you never work in this town again. And your daughter. Finish that sentence. Marcus's voice had gone completely flat. Please, finish that sentence about my daughter. Silence. That's what I thought. Marcus stood up. Ranger rose with him, sensing the tension. Let me be direct with you, Mr. Prescott. I've been threatened by men with bombs strapped to their chests. I've been shot at by enemies who wanted my country destroyed. You're just a man with a checkbook and a son who never learned that actions have consequences. You're making a mistake. Maybe, but here's the thing about mistakes. I've made plenty. I know how to survive them. Can your son say the same? He hung up. Lily was staring at him from the doorway. Was that Brandon's dad? Yes. What did he want? To make this go away. And what did you say? Marcus looked at his daughter, 14 years old, bruises on her throat, fear in her eyes that no child should carry. He thought about his wife, who had died believing her husband would always protect their little girl. He thought about every promise he'd ever made. I said, no. That night, Marcus couldn't sleep. He sat at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee going cold in his hands. Ranger lay at his feet, breathing softly. Lily was finally asleep. He'd checked on her 3 times to make sure. He kept seeing her face, the way it had turned from red to purple, the way her hands had stopped fighting, the way 30 kids had stood there filming like it was content for their feeds. What kind of world let that happen? What kind of school protected the predator instead of the prey? His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Drop this. Final warning. Marcus stared at the screen for a long moment. Then he took a screenshot and saved it to his evidence folder. They didn't know who they were dealing with. They thought he was just a warehouse worker with a military background. They thought he was poor, powerless, and easy to intimidate. They didn't know that he'd spent 12 years operating in the shadows against enemies who made Richard Prescott look like a schoolyard bully. They didn't know about the brothers he still had in the teams, men who would walk through fire for each other. They didn't know that Marcus Carter had never lost a fight that mattered, and this one mattered more than any mission he'd ever run. He opened his laptop and started making calls. The next morning, Lily didn't want to go to school.
"Please, Dad." Her voice was small. "Just one day. I can't face them."
Marcus looked at her bruised throat, at her red eyes, at the fear she was trying so hard to hide. "One day," he agreed. "But you're not hiding. You're recovering. There's a difference." While Lily rested, Marcus drove to the school. He walked into the front office at 8:15 a.m. The secretary, a woman in her 50s with reading glasses on a chain, looked up with practiced disinterest. "Can I help you?" "I need to speak with the principal. It's about my daughter, Lily Carter." "Do you have an appointment?" "No, but I have photographs of the bruises on her throat from yesterday's assault, and I have questions about why no adults intervened." The secretary's face went through several expressions in rapid succession. She picked up her phone. "Principal Harmon? There's a parent here to see you. He says it's urgent." Principal Diane Harmon was exactly what Marcus expected. 50-something, expensive suit, perfect posture, and eyes that calculated cost-benefit ratios while pretending to show concern. Her office was decorated with awards and photographs, several featuring her shaking hands with Richard Prescott at various charity events. "Mr. Carter," she gestured to a chair. "Please sit. I understand you have concerns about an incident yesterday." Marcus remained standing. "My daughter was strangled by Brandon Prescott in your hallway. 30 students watched and filmed. No teachers intervened. I want to know why." Harmon's smile flickered. "Mr. Carter, I understand you're upset, but I've reviewed the reports, and it seems there may have been some miscommunication. Brandon says they were just horsing around. Teenagers can be horsing around." Marcus pulled out his phone. "Is this horsing around?" He showed her the photograph of Lily's throat. The bruises had fully developed overnight, dark purple finger marks clearly visible. Harmon's face tightened, but she didn't look surprised. She looked inconvenienced. "That's unfortunate. But without witnesses willing to make formal statements, there are 30 witnesses, all with video evidence." "Yes, well," Harmon folded her hands. "Teenagers are reluctant to speak against their peers. I'm sure you understand the social dynamics at play." "What I understand," Marcus said slowly, "is that a 17-year-old boy assaulted a 14-year-old girl on school property. I understand that your staff was absent, and I understand that you're trying to make this disappear. Mr. Carter, how much did Richard Prescott donate to this school last year?" Harmon's mouth snapped shut. "I checked your public records. $2 million. New gym, new library, new science wing, all with the Prescott name on them." Marcus leaned forward. "How many complaints about Brandon have been filed in the past 3 years?" "That information is confidential." "I'll find out anyway. I want to know how many kids this boy has hurt while you look the other way." Harmon stood. Her professional mask was cracking. "Mr. Carter, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. If you have complaints, you can file them through the proper channels." "I plan to, and I plan to follow up. With the school board, with the police, and with anyone else who will listen." Marcus turned to leave, then stopped. "My wife died when Lily was 6. I promised her I would protect our daughter. I don't break promises, Principal Harmon. Not to the living, and not to the dead." He walked out. In the parking lot, his phone rang. It was a number he recognized. Jackson Williams, call sign Hawk, his best friend from the teams. "Marcus, got your message. What's going on?" Marcus leaned against his truck. Ranger watched him through the window. "My daughter's being attacked at school. Rich kid, connected family. They're trying to bury it." "What do you need?" "Information first. Recording equipment. Maybe legal help. Done. And I know a guy. V, a lawyer, works pro bono for vets. He's a pit bull. Thanks, Hawk. Brother, you'd do the same for me. Now tell me everything. Marcus did. When he finished, there was a long pause. These people have no idea what they started, Hawk said finally. They think they're untouchable because they have money. They don't understand what untouchable really means. I want to do this right, by the book. Then we'll do it by the book. But we'll do it smart. And if the book doesn't work, Hawk paused, we'll write a new chapter. When Marcus got home, Lily was sitting at the kitchen table with a notebook in front of her. I remembered more things, she said quietly. Stuff Brandon did to other kids. Jamie in 7th grade. He broke his glasses and his nose. Maria in 10th. He set her hair on fire in chemistry class. The school said it was an accident. Marcus sat down across from her. How do you know about these? Everyone knows. Everyone's scared. That's why nobody helps. She looked up at him. Dad, what are we doing? We're building a case. Against Brandon? Against everyone who let this happen. Lily was quiet for a moment. Then she asked the question that had been haunting her all night. What if we lose? Marcus reached across the table and took her hand. Then we lose fighting. We lose standing up. We lose with our heads high and our conscience clear. He squeezed her fingers. But we're not going to lose. Because we have something they don't. What? The truth, and people who are willing to tell it. At 3:47 p.m., a black SUV pulled into their apartment complex. Marcus watched from the window as a man in an expensive suit stepped out. Richard Prescott. Alone. Lily, go to your room. Dad! Now! She went. Marcus opened the front door before Richard could knock. Ranger stood beside him, hackles raised. Richard Prescott was 55, silver-haired, and radiated the kind of confidence that came from decades of getting whatever he wanted. He smiled like they were old friends. Mr. Carter, I thought we should speak face to face, man to man. Then speak. Richard glanced at the dog. May I come in? No. The smile flickered. Very well. I'll be direct. I made some calls last night. I know your situation. Single father, warehouse job, barely making rent. Your wife passed away 8 years ago. Cancer. I'm sorry for your loss. Marcus said nothing. I also know about your service record. Impressive. 3 deployments, multiple commendations, honorable discharge. Richard's eyes hardened slightly. But I also know you've had difficulty adjusting to civilian life. Job instability, financial stress. The kind of history that might concern a family court judge. Are you threatening to take my daughter? I'm pointing out that there are many ways this situation could unfold. Some better than others. Richard pulled an envelope from his jacket. $50,000, cash, more than a year of your salary. Use it for Lily's college fund, for a new apartment, for whatever you need. All I ask is that you withdraw your complaints and transfer her to another school. Marcus looked at the envelope. $50,000 would change their lives. New apartment, better neighborhood, security he hadn't felt in years. He thought about Lily's face when she told him about Jamie and Maria, about all the kids Brandon had hurt while everyone looked away. He thought about what kind of man accepts money to abandon others. No. Richard's mask slipped completely. You're making a mistake. Second time someone's told me that in 24 hours. Marcus stepped forward. Ranger moved with him. Here's what I know, Mr. Prescott. I know your son is a predator. I know you've been paying to cover his tracks. And I know that eventually, Predators get caught. You have no idea what you're starting. I know exactly what I'm starting. Marcus's voice was quiet but absolute. I'm starting a fight. And I don't lose fights that matter. Richard stared at him for a long moment. Something shifted in his expression. Not fear, not yet, but the beginning of uncertainty. You'll regret this. Maybe, but your son will regret it more. Richard Prescott turned and walked back to his SUV. He didn't look back. Marcus watched until the vehicle disappeared around the corner. Then he closed the door and found Lily standing in the hallway.
You could have taken the money, she said quietly.
We need it. We need our self-respect more. He pulled her into a hug. Money comes and goes, sweetheart. But who you are, that stays forever. That night, Marcus made 3 phone calls. The first was to Hawk, confirming the equipment would arrive tomorrow. The second was to the VA lawyer, scheduling a consultation. The third was to a number he found in an old news article. Sarah Chen, investigative journalist, known for covering corruption in local institutions. Ms. Chen, my name is Marcus Carter. I have a story you might be interested in. I'm listening. It's about Ridgemont High School, about a boy named Brandon Prescott, and about all the victims his family has paid to keep quiet. There was a pause. When Sarah spoke again, her voice was sharp with interest. How soon can we meet? Tomorrow. And Ms. Chen? Bring a recorder. This is going to take a while. He hung up. Outside his window, the city lights flickered like distant stars. Somewhere out there, Richard Prescott was planning his next move. Somewhere, Brandon was convincing himself that nothing would change. They were wrong. The storm was coming, and Marcus Carter had learned long ago how to walk through storms without breaking. Sarah Chen was already waiting when Marcus walked into the coffee shop the next morning. She stood as he approached, tall, lean, mid-40s, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. Her silver-streaked hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail. She extended her hand. Mr. Carter, thank you for meeting me. Thank you for coming. Marcus sat across from her. Ranger settled beneath the table, drawing a few curious glances from other customers. Sarah pulled out a recorder. Do you mind? That's why I called you. She pressed record. Tell me everything. Marcus did. He started with a text message from Lily. He described what he'd seen in the hallway. He showed her the photographs of his daughter's bruised throat. He told her about Principal Harmon's dismissal, about Richard Prescott's visit, about the $50,000 sitting in an envelope he'd thrown in the trash. Sarah listened without interrupting. When he finished, she leaned back. How many other victims do you know about? My daughter mentioned 2 by name. Jamie, broken nose, broken glasses. Maria, hair set on fire. Both incidents ruled accidents. There are more. Sarah's voice was flat. I've been investigating the Prescotts for 2 years. Every time I get close, witnesses disappear. Families move. Records vanish. How many? At least a dozen that I can confirm. Probably more. She met his eyes. Richard Prescott doesn't just have money, Mr. Carter. He has connections. Police, school board, city council. Half the town owes him favors. Then why are you still investigating? Sarah smiled grimly. Because I'm stubborn. And because some stories need to be told, no matter who tries to bury them. Marcus nodded slowly. What do you need from me? Proof. Undeniable, documented proof. Testimony from victims willing to go on record. Video evidence that can't be dismissed or manipulated. She paused. Can you get it? Yes. How can you be sure? Marcus thought about Hawk's equipment arriving today. About the VA lawyer who specialized in impossible cases. About 12 years of training for exactly this kind of operation. Because I've spent my career doing things people said couldn't be done. This is just a different kind of mission. Sarah studied him for a long moment. Most people would have taken the money. Most people haven't promised a dying woman they'd protect her daughter. Something shifted in Sarah's expression. Respect, maybe. Or recognition. I'll start pulling files. Court records, settlement documents, anything public. You focus on the witnesses. She slid a card across the table. My personal number. Call any time. Marcus pocketed the card. One question. Yes? Why haven't you published what you already know? Sarah's jaw tightened. Because the last journalist who tried to expose the Prescotts had a car accident 2 weeks before her story ran. She survived, but she never wrote again. She stood. These people play for keeps, Mr. Carter. Make sure you understand that. I do. Good. Then let's take them down. 3 days passed. Lily returned to school because Marcus refused to let fear win. But he drove her every morning and picked her up every afternoon. Ranger went with him each time, a visible reminder that she wasn't alone. Brandon kept his distance. The confrontation in the hallway had bought them space, but Marcus knew it wouldn't last. Predators didn't change. They adapted. On the 4th day, Lily came out of school with her head down. Marcus knew immediately. What happened? Nothing physical. She climbed into the truck. Just words. What words? They're calling me a snitch, saying my dad threatened Brandon with a dog, saying I'm going to get expelled for causing trouble. Her voice cracked. Madison posted a video, edited, makes it look like I started everything. Marcus gripped the steering wheel. Show me. Lily pulled up the video on her phone. The footage had been cut to remove Brandon's attack entirely. It showed only Marcus walking through the crowd, Ranger growling, and Brandon backing away with his hands raised. The caption read, Crazy military dad threatens student with attack dog. Is anyone safe at Ridgemont? 15,000 views. Hundreds of comments calling Marcus unstable, dangerous, unfit. They're lying, Lily whispered. Everyone knows they're lying, but nobody will say anything. Marcus watched the view count tick upward. He thought about how easy it was to destroy someone with half a story and a good edit. Save that video, he said quietly. Why? Because when we tell the truth, people will need to see how hard they tried to hide it. That night, Hawk arrived. He pulled into the apartment complex in a nondescript van, former SEAL written in every line of his body. 40 years old, shaved head, eyes that had seen too much to be surprised by anything. Brother, he embraced Marcus at the door. Been too long. Thanks for coming. Wouldn't miss it. Hawk carried 2 cases inside and set them on the kitchen table. Recording equipment, military grade, audio, video, motion activated, undetectable by standard sweeps. Marcus opened the first case. The devices inside were smaller than his thumbnail. How do we deploy them? Carefully. I'll walk you through placement tomorrow. Hawk glanced toward the hallway. That's her? Lily stood in her doorway, watching them. Lily, this is Jackson. We served together. Uncle Hawk, she managed a small smile. Dad talks about you. Only good things, I hope. Hawk crossed to her. I heard what happened. I'm sorry. It's not your fault. No, but I'm still sorry, and I'm here to help make it right. He held out his hand. Deal? Lily shook it. Deal. The next morning, Marcus filed a formal police report. Officer Ted Malone took his statement with theatrical boredom. Mid-30s, soft around the middle, eyes that kept drifting to his phone. So you're saying your daughter was assaulted? Strangled. There are photographs. Uh-huh. Malone didn't look at them. And you confronted the other student? I removed my daughter from danger. With an aggressive dog. With my service animal, who never touched anyone. Malone finally looked up. Mr. Carter, I've known the Prescott family for 15 years. Brandon's a good kid. Maybe a little rough around the edges, but... A little rough? Marcus leaned forward. He choked a 14-year-old girl until she couldn't breathe. That's not rough. That's attempted murder. That's a pretty serious accusation. It's a pretty serious crime. Malone sighed heavily. Look, I'll file the report. But without witnesses willing to make statements, there's not much we can do. Kids exaggerate. Memories get fuzzy. You know how it is. I know exactly how it is. Marcus stood. I also know that Richard Prescott donates heavily to the Police Benevolent Fund. Funny how that works. Malone's face hardened. You should be careful throwing around accusations, Mr. Carter. People might get the wrong idea about you. People already have the wrong idea. That's why I'm here. He walked out. 2 days later, Lily's locker was vandalized. The word liar was spray-painted across the metal in red letters. Her books had been thrown down the hallway. Her lunch, carefully packed by Marcus that morning, was stomped into the floor. She called him from the bathroom, crying. I can't do this anymore, Dad. I can't. Yes, you can. You're stronger than they know. I'm not strong. I'm scared all the time. I can't eat. I can't sleep. Every time I turn a corner, I think he's going to be there. Marcus closed his eyes, heard his wife's voice in his memory. Protect her, Marcus. Promise me. I'm coming to get you. No. Lily's voice steadied slightly. If I leave, they win. You said that. I also said your safety comes first. I'm safe. Just talk to me, please. So he did. He talked to her for 20 minutes while she sat on the bathroom floor. He told her about the equipment Hawk brought, about the lawyer they were meeting tomorrow, about Sarah Chen's investigation. We're building something, he said, brick by brick. It takes time. What if we run out of time? We won't. How do you know? Marcus thought about every mission that seemed impossible until it wasn't, about the teammates who refused to quit, about the promise he'd made to a woman who trusted him with her daughter's life. Because giving up isn't an option. Not for me, not for you, not ever. The V. A lawyer's name was Robert Vance. 60 years old, silver crew cut, handshake like a vice. He'd spent 20 years in JAG before going private, and he treated every case like a war. The Prescotts. Vance spread a folder across his desk. I've been waiting for someone to take them on. Marcus sat across from him. You know them? I know what they've done. Settlements to families of victims, NDAs that would make your head spin, intimidation campaigns against anyone who asks questions. Vance shook his head. Richard Prescott operates like he's above the law because for 30 years he has been. How do we change that? Evidence, public pressure, and patience. Vance met his eyes. This won't be quick. Are you prepared for that? I'm prepared for whatever it takes. Good, because once we start, we can't stop. Richard will come at you with everything. Lawyers, private investigators, media manipulation. He'll try to destroy your reputation, your finances, your mental health. He'll make your daughter's life hell. Her life is already hell. Then let's give her a reason to keep fighting. Vance pulled out a legal pad. Tell me everything, from the beginning. Don't leave anything out. That same night, Marcus found something in his mailbox. An envelope. No return address. Inside, photographs. Lily walking to school. Lily at her locker. Lily sitting alone at lunch. All taken from a distance with a telephoto lens. At the bottom, a typed note. We're watching. Drop this." Marcus's hands didn't shake as he looked at the photos. He'd received death threats in 7 languages from enemies who meant every word. This was amateur hour by comparison. But it wasn't about him. It was about Lily. He called Hawk. "They're surveilling my daughter. Counter-surveillance starting tomorrow. I'll put eyes on the school. I want to know who they hired." "Already on it." Hawk paused. "They're escalating, Marcus. That means we're hurting them." "Not enough. Not yet." 1 week after the hallway incident, Marcus made contact with Jamie's parents. The Hendersons lived in a small house on the east side of town. David Henderson worked construction. His wife Maria worked nights at the hospital. Their son Jamie was 13 years old and hadn't smiled since Brandon Prescott broke his nose behind the gymnasium. Marcus knocked on their door at 7 p.m. David answered. Big man, tired eyes, calluses on his hands. "Can I help you?" "Mr. Henderson, my name is Marcus Carter. My daughter goes to Ridgemont. Brandon Prescott attacked her last week." David's face went through several emotions: surprise, recognition, fear. "I don't know what you're talking about." "I think you do." Marcus kept his voice gentle. "I think your son was hurt too, and I think Richard Prescott paid you to stay quiet." David glanced over his shoulder, lowered his voice. "You need to leave. I'm not asking you to do anything risky. I just want to talk. We sign papers. If we talk, we lose everything. You've already lost everything." Marcus held his gaze. "Your son is afraid to go to school. He wakes up with nightmares. He thinks nobody will believe him because nobody ever has." He paused. "How do I know that?" "Because my daughter's the same way." David's jaw tightened. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then Maria appeared behind him. Small woman, scrub still on from her shift, exhaustion carved into every line of her face. "Let him in," she said quietly. "Maria, I'm tired of being afraid, David. I'm tired of watching Jamie disappear inside himself. If this man can help, we should listen." David hesitated. Then he stepped aside. Jamie Henderson sat on the couch with his knees pulled to his chest. 13 years old. Glasses with tape on the bridge. A fading bruise under his left eye that nobody had asked about. "Jamie," Marcus knelt in front of him. "My name is Marcus. I'm a dad like yours, and I'm trying to stop the boy who hurt you." Jamie didn't look up. "You can't stop him. Nobody can." "Why do you think that?" "Because his dad owns everything. The police, the school, the whole town." Jamie's voice was hollow. "He told me if I ever said anything, he'd kill my dog. He said it like he was ordering pizza, like it was nothing." Marcus felt that cold rage again, the same rage he'd felt in the hallway. "Jamie, I need you to listen to me. Brandon Prescott is not invincible. His father is not invincible. They've gotten away with this for so long because everyone believed they couldn't be beaten. But they can be, if enough people tell the truth. Nobody will believe us. I'll believe you. And there's a journalist who will believe you, and a lawyer who will believe you, and every other family that Richard Prescott has paid to stay silent." Marcus reached out and gently lifted Jamie's chin. "You are not alone anymore. Do you understand? You're not alone." Tears spilled down Jamie's cheeks. His mother made a soft sound and pulled him close. "We'll talk to your journalist," David said hoarsely. "Whatever you need, just promise me you'll protect my son." "I promise." Over the next 5 days, Marcus contacted 6 more families. Maria Gonzalez, 15 years old, hair still growing back unevenly after Brandon set it on fire. Her parents had taken a $40,000 settlement after the school threatened to expel her for provoking the incident. Devin Williams, 14, transferred schools after Brandon broke his arm in the locker room. His single mother had been threatened with eviction from her Prescott-owned apartment if she pressed charges. 3 others with similar stories: broken bones, burned skin, psychological trauma, all buried under mountains of money and legal threats. One by one, they agreed to talk. Sarah Chen recorded every interview. Robert Vance documented every settlement. Hawk's surveillance identified the private investigator following Lily, a former cop named Frank Morrison, who had a history of working for wealthy clients with things to hide. The case was building, but so was the pressure. 12 days after the hallway incident, Principal Harmon called Marcus to a meeting. He walked into her office, knowing it was a trap. He went anyway. Harmon wasn't alone. A man in an expensive suit sat beside her. Sharp-featured, cold eyes. The kind of lawyer who specialized in making problems disappear. "Mr. Carter," Harmon gestured to a chair. "Please sit. This is Mr. Reynolds, representing the school district." Marcus remained standing. "What do you want?" Reynolds opened a folder. "We've received disturbing reports about your behavior, Mr. Carter. Threatening students, bringing an aggressive animal onto school property, harassing families connected to Ridgemont. Is this a joke?" "We take safety very seriously." Reynolds' voice was silk over steel. "Several parents have expressed concern about your presence near the school. We're prepared to seek a restraining order if necessary." Marcus laughed. Actually laughed. "You're trying to get a restraining order against me? For picking up my daughter from school? For intimidation? For stalking? For creating a hostile environment?" Reynolds closed the folder. "Of course, all of this could be avoided if you simply withdrew your complaints and found another educational option for your daughter." "Let me make sure I understand." Marcus stepped closer to the desk. "A student strangled my daughter on school property. You did nothing. His father threatened me. You did nothing. And now you're threatening me for trying to protect my child? We're advising you to consider your options." "Here's what I'm considering." Marcus placed both hands on the desk. "I'm considering the 12 families I've spoken to in the past 2 weeks. I'm considering the evidence I've compiled. I'm considering the journalist who's very interested in how this school has systematically protected a violent predator for years." He smiled. "I'm also considering how this conversation would look on the evening news." Reynolds' face went pale. Harmon's composure cracked. "Mr. Carter, there's no need for— There's every need. You've had years to do the right thing. You chose money instead. Now you're going to find out what happens when someone chooses the truth." He walked out. That night, someone threw a brick through his apartment window. Glass exploded across the living room floor. Ranger barked wildly. Lily screamed. Marcus got to her room in 3 seconds. She was huddled in the corner, trembling. "It's okay. It's okay. Stay here." He swept the apartment. Empty. The brick had a note attached. "Last warning." He called the police. Officer Malone showed up 45 minutes later and took a report with visible disinterest. "Probably just kids," Malone said. "Happens all the time." Kids who happen to throw bricks with threatening notes? Could be a coincidence. Marcus stared at him. "Does Richard Prescott pay you by the hour, or is it a flat monthly rate?" Malone's face reddened. "Watch yourself, Carter." "I've been watching. That's the problem, isn't it?" After Malone left, Marcus sat with Lily in her room. Ranger lay across both their laps, a warm barrier against the cold fear. "Are we going to be okay?" Lily asked. Marcus thought about the brick, the surveillance photos, the threats, the restraining order. the entire weight of the Prescott empire pressing down on their small family. "Yes," he said, "because we're not fighting alone anymore." "What if it's not enough?" "It will be." He kissed the top of her head. "Trust me." She was quiet for a moment. Then, "Mom would have been scared too, right? But she would have kept fighting?" Marcus's throat tightened. "Your mother was the bravest person I ever knew, and you're just like her." "I don't feel brave." "Nobody does. That's the secret. Courage isn't about not being afraid. It's about being afraid and refusing to stop." The next morning, Marcus received a text from Sarah Chen. "I found something. Big. Meet me at noon. Come alone." He went. Sarah was waiting in a parking garage, away from cameras. She handed him a folder. Richard Prescott had a business partner named Thomas Blackwell. 10 years ago, they had a falling out over a development deal. Blackwell threatened to expose some of Richard's practices. What happened? Car accident. Single vehicle. Blackwell died instantly. Case was closed in 48 hours. Sarah's voice was flat. His widow always believed it was murder. She couldn't prove it. Marcus opened the folder. Police reports, autopsy results, witness statements that contradicted each other. "This is a decade old. Why does it matter now?" "Because the same private investigator who's following your daughter was working for Richard at the time of the accident." Sarah met his eyes. "Frank Morrison. He has a pattern, Marcus. Surveillance, intimidation, and when that doesn't work, accidents." Marcus felt something cold settle in his chest. "You're saying my family is in danger?" "I'm saying you need to be very careful." Sarah paused. "I'm also saying that if we can connect Morrison to both cases, we might be able to bring down more than just a bully. We might be able to bring down a killer." That evening, Marcus called a meeting. Hawk, Vance, Sarah. The four of them gathered in Marcus's apartment, while Lily stayed at a neighbor's house. "We're escalating," Marcus said. "Richard Prescott isn't just protecting his son. He's protecting himself. There's a body count here that goes beyond broken bones and burned hair." Vance nodded slowly. "I've seen the Blackwell file. It's circumstantial, but it's compelling." "We need more than compelling," Sarah said. "We need proof." "Then we get it." Hawk pulled out a tablet. "I've been tracking Morrison for 3 days. He follows a pattern. Home, office, 2 bars he frequents. His car has a tracking device. I planted it yesterday." "Is that legal?" Vance asked. "Do you want to win or not?" Silence. Marcus stepped in. "Here's what we do. Sarah continues building the public case. Victims, settlements, cover-ups. Vance prepares for legal action. Hawk and I handle Morrison." "Handle him how?" Marcus met each of their eyes. "By showing him that he's not the only one who knows how to watch. And by making him understand that if anything happens to my family, he's the first person I'll visit." Hawk smiled grimly. "That's the Marcus I remember." 3 days later, everything changed. Lily came home from school with her arm in a makeshift sling. Her face was streaked with tears. Her jacket was torn. Marcus felt his heart stop. "What happened?" "Brandon," she could barely speak. "He caught me behind the gym. He said if his dad couldn't make us stop, he would." "Show me your arm." She winced as he examined it. Sprained wrist, bruises already forming. "He twisted it, said he'd break it next time." She looked up at him with devastated eyes. "Dad, he said he knows where we live. He said he can get to me whenever he wants." Marcus pulled her close, held her while she sobbed, and made a decision. The legal way, the patient way, the careful, documented, by-the-book way. It wasn't working. It was time to change the rules. Marcus didn't sleep that night. He sat at the kitchen table with Lily's medical report in front of him. Sprained wrist, contusions on her upper arm, psychological trauma noted by the emergency room nurse who'd ask gentle questions while Lily stared at the wall. Ranger lay at his feet, sensing the tension, refusing to close his eyes. At 2 a.m., Marcus picked up his phone and called Hawk. "I need Morrison's schedule for tomorrow." "Got it. What are you planning?" "A conversation." "Want backup?" "No. This one's personal." Hawk was quiet for a moment. "Don't do anything that lands you in prison. Lily needs her father." "Lily needs to stop being afraid. That's what she needs." Frank Morrison left his apartment at 7:15 a.m. Marcus was waiting by his car. Morrison was 53, ex-cop, built like a man who'd spent decades hurting people and getting away with it. He stopped short when he saw Marcus leaning against his driver's door. "Can I help you?" "You've been following my daughter." Marcus's voice was conversational. "Taking pictures, sending them to Richard Prescott." Morrison's eyes flickered. "I don't know what you're talking about." "I have photographs of you photographing her. I have your license plate. I have your work history." Marcus pushed off the car. "I also know about Thomas Blackwell." The color drained from Morrison's face. "That's right. I know about the accident that wasn't an accident. I know you were working for Prescott at the time, and I know that if anything happens to my daughter, you're the first person I'll come looking for." "You're threatening me?" "I'm making a promise." Marcus stepped closer, close enough that Morrison could see the scars on his hands, could see the complete absence of fear in his eyes. "I spent 12 years in places where men like you wouldn't last 12 hours. I've done things that would give you nightmares. So let me be very clear." He grabbed Morrison's collar and pulled him close. "If I see you within 100 yards of my daughter again, I won't call the police. I won't file a report. I'll handle it myself. And Richard Prescott won't be able to protect you. Are we clear?" Morrison nodded frantically. "Good." Marcus released him. "Now go tell your boss that the rules have changed." By noon, Marcus's phone was ringing. Richard Prescott. He answered. "Mr. Carter." Richard's voice was ice. "You assaulted my employee this morning. I had a conversation with him. He says you threatened his life. I clarified consequences." Marcus kept his voice flat. "Your man has been stalking my 14-year-old daughter. In most states, that's a felony. You have no proof of that. I have photographs, surveillance footage, and testimony from 3 witnesses who saw him parked outside her school." Marcus paused. "I also have a journalist who's very interested in the Thomas Blackwell case. Remember him? Your former partner, who died in a convenient accident?" Silence. "You're bluffing." "Try me." More silence. When Richard spoke again, his voice had changed. The smooth confidence was cracking. "What do you want, Carter?" "Justice. Everyone has a price. Not everyone." Marcus hung up. That afternoon, Lily refused to go to her room. She sat at the kitchen table doing homework while Marcus made dinner. Ranger lay between them, head swiveling at every sound. "Dad?" "Yeah?" "Brandon said something today, before he hurt me." She didn't look up from her math book. "He said his dad has friends everywhere. Police, judges, everyone. He said even if we win, we'll lose." Marcus set down the spatula, walked over, sat across from her. "Do you believe that?" "I don't know what to believe anymore." "Then believe this." He reached across and took her hand. "I fought enemies who had armies, who had bombs, who had every advantage you could imagine. And I'm still here. You know why? She shook her head. Because having power isn't the same as being right. And being right matters. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually, truth wins. It always does. What if it doesn't win fast enough? Marcus squeezed her hand. Then we hold on until it does. 3 days later, Lily was hospitalized. Marcus got the call at work. The school nurse, voice shaking.
Mr. Carter, there's been an incident. Your daughter is unconscious. The ambulance is on its way.
He made the 15-minute drive in 8. When he burst through the emergency room doors, a doctor was already waiting. Mr. Carter, I'm Dr. Patterson. Your daughter has a concussion and multiple contusions. She was found behind the gymnasium. A janitor heard her calling for help. Where is she? Room 7. She's awake now, but Marcus was already moving. Lily lay in the hospital bed with an IV in her arm and bandages on her head. Her left eye was swollen shut. Her cheekbone had a distinctive mark, the imprint of a ring. Brandon's championship ring.
Daddy.
Her voice was barely a whisper.
I'm sorry.
Marcus knelt beside the bed, took her hand, felt his heart shatter into 1,000 pieces. Don't apologize. Just tell me what happened.
He waited for me. After gym class.
Said he was finishing what he started. Tears leaked from her good eye.
He hit me so hard I couldn't see. Then he kicked me. He kept saying I was ruining his life, that his dad was going to fix everything, but I was making it difficult.
Did anyone see?
No, he made sure.
She squeezed his hand weakly.
I tried to fight back this time. I scratched his face, got some of his skin under my fingernails.
Marcus's breath caught. You did?
The nurse already took samples. She said it was evidence.
Lily tried to smile.
I remembered what you said about not giving up.
Marcus pressed his forehead to her hand. For a moment, he couldn't speak. Then, I'm so proud of you.
I don't feel proud. I feel broken.
You're not broken. You're battered. There's a difference. He lifted his head. Broken people give up. You fought back. That's not broken. That's brave. The police arrived an hour later. This time, it wasn't Officer Malone. It was Detective James Holloway, mid-40s, broad shoulders, tired eyes that had seen too much. He'd been called specifically because of the severity of the injuries. Mr. Carter, Holloway shook his hand. I've reviewed the case file. I have questions. So do I. Holloway sat beside the bed. His voice was gentle when he spoke to Lily. Can you tell me exactly what happened? She did. Every detail. The waiting, the words, the blows, the ring that cut her face. Holloway wrote everything down. When she finished, he looked at Marcus. Brandon Prescott. Yes. Richard Prescott's son. You know the family? Holloway's jaw tightened. I know what everyone knows, that they're untouchable. He closed his notebook. I also know that I've been a cop for 22 years, and I've never let money tell me how to do my job. Officer Malone has different priorities. Officer Malone is being investigated for corruption. Has been for 6 months. Holloway met Marcus's eyes. I'm not Malone. Marcus studied him, saw something familiar there. The look of a man who'd chosen integrity over convenience. We have DNA under her fingernails. I know. The nurse expedited the kit. And we have other victims. 12 families with similar stories. Holloway leaned forward. Tell me everything. That night, Marcus made 3 calls. First, to Hawk. It's time. Full operation. On my way. Second, to Vance. We're accelerating the timeline. What happened? She's in the hospital. Concussion. Possible skull fracture. Marcus's voice broke slightly. They beat her unconscious behind the gym while teachers were 50 feet away. Silence. Then, I'll have the paperwork ready by morning. Third, to Sarah Chen. Can you meet me at the hospital? I'm already in the parking lot. I heard through my sources. She paused. Marcus, I'm so sorry. Don't be sorry. Be ready. This ends now. 2 days later, Miguel Santos arrived. Former SEAL tech specialist. 40 years old, quiet as a ghost, capable of finding information that didn't want to be found. He set up in Marcus's living room with 3 laptops and equipment that looked like it belonged in a government facility. School security footage is stored on a cloud server, Miguel explained. The server is managed by Ridgemont Technical Services, which is owned by Richard Prescott. Exactly. They've been deleting footage for years. But here's the thing about digital data. Miguel smiled grimly. It's never really gone. It just thinks it is. Can you get it back? Already working on it. His fingers flew across the keyboard. Give me 48 hours. While Miguel worked, Marcus and Hawk planned. Brandon can't resist showing off, Hawk said. Every predator has a pattern. He isolates victims, attacks when there are no witnesses, and then brags to his friends afterward. How do we use that? We make him think he's winning. Let Lily return to school. Make it seem like we've given up. Hawk pulled out a device the size of a coin. She wears this, audio and video, legal in this state for documenting potential crimes. I won't use my daughter as bait. You're not using her as bait. You're giving her a weapon. Hawk met his eyes. She fought back last time. She wants to fight again. I can see it in her eyes. Marcus thought about Lily in the hospital bed, about the fire in her voice when she said she'd scratched Brandon's face. I'll ask her. If she says no, we find another way. Lily said yes. I'm tired of being the victim, she told Marcus when he visited her hospital room. I'm tired of being afraid. If this can help stop him, not just from hurting me, but from hurting anyone else, then I want to do it. It could be dangerous. It's already dangerous. She lifted her chin. You said courage is being afraid and refusing to stop. This is me refusing to stop. Marcus looked at his daughter, bruised, battered, but unbroken. He saw her mother in that moment, the same fierce determination, the same refusal to surrender. Okay, he said quietly. We do this together. Lily was discharged on a Thursday. She returned to school on Monday. The whispers followed her everywhere. Some students avoided eye contact. Others stared openly at her injuries. Brandon Prescott watched from across the cafeteria with a smile on his face. Madison Chen took photos, posted them with laughing emojis. Teachers looked away, but Lily wasn't alone anymore. Hawk had positioned himself in a surveillance van 3 blocks from the school. Miguel monitored all communications from Marcus's apartment. Detective Holloway had officers ready to move within minutes, and beneath Lily's collar, a tiny device recorded everything. The confrontation came on Wednesday. Brandon cornered her in the library. Same pattern, same arrogance, same certainty that he could do whatever he wanted. Back so soon? He leaned against the shelf, blocking her exit. I thought I taught you a lesson. I'm not scared of you anymore. You should be. He stepped closer. My dad says you're causing problems. Says your father's been talking to people he shouldn't talk to. Maybe your dad should be more worried about himself. Brandon's eyes narrowed. What's that supposed to mean? It means people are asking questions. About you. About him. About all the families he paid to stay quiet. Lily held her ground. It means this isn't going away. Brandon grabbed her arm, squeezed hard enough to make her wince. You think you're brave? You're nothing. You're trash, just like I said. And when my dad is done with your father, you'll have nobody left. Let go of me. Or what? Or I'll scream. And this time there are witnesses. Brandon glanced around. 2 students had noticed them. A teacher was walking toward the library entrance. His grip loosened. This isn't over, he hissed. Not even close. You're right, Lily pulled free. It's just beginning. She walked away without looking back. In the surveillance van, Hawks smiled. Got him. That night, Miguel broke through. I found it. His voice was triumphant. 3 years of deleted footage. Every incident. Every cover-up. Every time someone looked the other way. Marcus leaned over his shoulder. The screen showed time-stamped files, dozens of them. Brandon attacking Jamie Henderson. Principal Harmon watching through a window and walking away. Richard Prescott handing an envelope to Officer Malone. Maria Gonzalez with her hair on fire while a teacher stood frozen. Miguel scrolled through the files. They thought they erased this. They were wrong. Can this be authenticated? Already done. Digital signatures, metadata, server logs. This is bulletproof. Miguel looked up. There's something else. What? Communications between Richard Prescott and Frank Morrison, from 10 years ago. He pulled up an email chain. They're discussing Thomas Blackwell, the business partner who died. Marcus read the emails. His blood went cold. He knew about the car accident before it happened. More than knew, he ordered it. Miguel highlighted a phrase. Make sure the problem goes away permanently. This is proof of murder. This is proof that Richard Prescott is a monster. Miguel met his eyes. What do you want to do with it? Marcus thought about Lily in the hospital, about Jamie Henderson's broken glasses, about Maria Gonzalez's burned scalp, about all the families who'd been paid to suffer in silence. Everything. The next morning, Marcus walked into the police station. Detective Holloway was waiting for him. DNA results came back, Holloway said. Skin under Lily's fingernails is a match for Brandon Prescott. Combined with her testimony and medical records, we have enough for an arrest warrant. There's more. Marcus handed him a flash drive. 3 years of deleted security footage. Communications proving Richard Prescott orchestrated a murder 10 years ago. And testimony from 12 families he paid to stay quiet. Holloway stared at the drive. Where did you get this? Does it matter? It matters for admissibility. It was recovered from a server through a court-authorized subpoena. Marcus produced the document. My lawyer's very thorough. Holloway read the subpoena. Then he looked up with something like respect in his eyes. You planned this. I executed it. There's a difference. The Prescotts have a lot of friends in this department. Do you have friends in this department? Holloway was quiet for a moment. Then he picked up his phone. Get me Captain Rodriguez. Tell her it's urgent. Tell her we're about to make the biggest arrest this city has seen in 20 years. The warrants were issued at 4 p.m. By 6 p.m., officers were positioned outside the Prescott Mansion and Ridgemont High School. Marcus stood in the command post with Holloway, watching the operation unfold through radio communications. Units in position at the residence. Units in position at the school. Holloway looked at Marcus. You sure you don't want to be there for the arrest? I'm sure. This isn't about revenge. It's about justice. There's a difference? Revenge is personal. Justice is for everyone. Marcus thought about Jamie, Maria, Devin, all the kids who'd been hurt. This isn't just for Lily. It's for all of them. Holloway nodded slowly. Then let's give them justice. He keyed the radio. All units, Execute. The arrests happened simultaneously. Brandon Prescott was pulled out of lacrosse practice in front of his teammates. He screamed about his father, threatened lawsuits, promised everyone would pay. Nobody listened. Richard Prescott was arrested at his office. His lawyers arrived within minutes, but the charges were too serious for bail. Assault conspiracy, witness intimidation, obstruction of justice, murder. His face, as he was led out in handcuffs, was broadcast on every local news channel by 9 p.m. Principal Harmon was suspended pending investigation. Officer Malone was arrested for corruption. The school board announced an emergency session for the following week. And in a small apartment across town, Marcus Carter held his daughter while she cried. "It's over?" she asked. "The arrests are over. The trial is just beginning." "Will they go to prison?" "That's up to a jury." Marcus stroked her hair. "But they'll never hurt you again. That's what matters." Lily was quiet for a long moment. Then, "I was so scared, Dad. The whole time, I was terrified. But I kept thinking about what you said, about being afraid and refusing to stop." "You did more than refuse to stop. You fought back. You helped bring them down." Marcus pulled back to look at her. "I've served with men in combat who had less courage than you showed." "Really?" "Really. You're a warrior, Lily. Don't ever let anyone tell you different." That night, Sarah Chen's story went live. The headline read, "Wealthy Family's Decades of Terror, Inside the Prescott Cover-Up." It detailed everything: the assaults, the settlements, the intimidation, the murder of Thomas Blackwell, the corruption that had protected one family's violence for generations. By morning, it had been picked up by national outlets. By noon, the governor had announced a state investigation. By evening, 3 more victims had come forward with their own stories. The dam had broken, and the flood was just beginning. Marcus sat on his apartment balcony, watching the city lights flicker below. Ranger lay at his feet. Inside, Lily was sleeping peacefully for the first time in months. His phone buzzed. A text from Hawk. "Proud of you, brother. This is what we trained for." Marcus typed back, "This is what we lived for." He looked up at the stars, thought about his wife, wondered if she could see what their daughter had become.
"We did it, Sarah," he whispered. "She's safe now."
The night was quiet. The war was won. But the battle for true justice was only starting. The emergency school board meeting was scheduled for the following Thursday. Marcus spent the week preparing. Vance walked him through procedure. Sarah organized the families who would testify. Hawk coordinated security after anonymous threats started appearing on social media. But it was Lily who surprised him most. "I want to speak," she said Tuesday night. "At the meeting. I want to tell them what happened." Marcus looked up from the documents spread across the kitchen table. "You don't have to do that." "I know, but I want to." She sat across from him, her bruises fading to yellow now. "All those other kids who were hurt, Jamie, Maria, Devin, they need to know someone will stand up, even if it's scary." "It will be scary. Richard Prescott's lawyers will be there. They'll try to make you look like a liar." "Let them try." Something fierce burned in her eyes. "I know the truth. Everyone who watches that footage will know the truth, and I'm done being silent." Marcus studied his daughter. 14 years old, battered but unbroken. More courage in her small frame than men twice her size. "Your mother would be so proud of you." "I know." Lily smiled softly. "That's why I have to do this. For her. For us. For everyone." Thursday morning arrived cold and gray. The school board meeting was held in the district administration building, a space usually reserved for budget discussions and policy reviews. Today, it would become a courtroom of public opinion. Marcus arrived early with Lily and Vance. Hawk took a position near the door, watching everyone who entered. Sarah Chen sat in the press section with her recorder running. The families filed in one by one. David and Maria Henderson with Jamie, who clutched his mother's hand like a lifeline. The Gonzalez family, Maria's hair now grown back enough to cover the burn scars. Devin Williams, with his arm that still didn't bend right. 6 other families Marcus had contacted over the past weeks. They filled an entire section of the room. 12 families, 12 stories, 12 reasons why this moment mattered. Detective Holloway sat near the back, badge visible, representing the ongoing criminal investigation. And then Richard Prescott entered. Even facing murder charges, he moved like a man who owned the room. His lawyers flanked him, 3 of them, expensive suits, cold eyes. He took a seat at the front and didn't look at anyone. Brandon wasn't there. He was in juvenile detention awaiting trial, denied bail after the judge reviewed the evidence. The board chair, Margaret Stone, called the meeting to order at precisely 9 a.m. We're here today to address serious allegations regarding student safety at Ridgemont High School and the conduct of district personnel. Her voice was steady, but her hands trembled slightly. We'll begin with testimony from affected families. Marcus spoke first. He stood at the podium in his navy dress uniform, medals on his chest, posture perfect, voice clear. My name is Marcus Carter. I served 12 years as a Navy SEAL, protecting this country from threats most people never see. I faced enemies with weapons, with bombs, with nothing to lose. None of that prepared me for what I found in a high school hallway 3 weeks ago. He described the moment he'd walked through those doors. The crowd of students filming. The laughter that echoed off lockers. His daughter's face turning purple, while Brandon Prescott's hand squeezed her throat. I removed my daughter from danger. I filed reports. I followed every procedure. And do you know what happened? Nothing. Because Richard Prescott made phone calls. Because Principal Harmon protected her donors. Because the system that was supposed to keep my daughter safe chose money over children. He paused. Let the silence stretch. I'm not here for revenge. I'm here for accountability. 12 families in this room have stories like mine. 12 children were hurt while adults looked away. That ends today. He sat down. Lily squeezed his hand. One by one, the families testified. David Henderson described finding his son unconscious behind the gymnasium. The school had called it roughhousing. Richard Prescott's lawyers had offered $40,000 for silence. They'd taken it because they were afraid. I'll regret that for the rest of my life, David said, voice breaking. I taught my son that money matters more than justice. I was wrong. Maria Gonzalez's mother showed photographs of her daughter's burned scalp. The chemistry teacher had witnessed everything. He'd retired 6 months later with a generous severance package. She still has nightmares, the mother said. She still flinches when someone lights a match. And nobody ever apologized. Devin Williams's arm had been broken so badly it required 2 surgeries. The official report called it a sports injury. Devin hadn't played sports in his life. Brandon told me if I ever talked, he'd break the other one, Devin said quietly. I believed him. I still believe him. The testimony went on for 2 hours, each story worse than the last, each family broken by the same system that was supposed to protect them. Then the footage played. Miguel had compiled a presentation, 3 years of deleted security videos, restored and authenticated. The room watched in horrified silence. Brandon shoving Jamie's face into a locker. The crack of breaking glasses audible on the recording. Maria screaming as flames caught her hair. A teacher frozen in shock while other students scrambled for extinguishers. Principal Harmon watching through her office window as Brandon kicked a student on the ground. Turning away, returning to her desk. Richard Prescott in the hallway moments after an incident, speaking calmly to a staff member, while his son slipped out a side door. And finally, the video from 3 weeks ago. Brandon's hand on Lily's throat, her face changing colors, the phones raised to capture her suffering. Someone in the audience started crying. Margaret Stone's face had gone white. "This is unconscionable," she whispered. Richard Prescott's lawyer stood. "Madam Chair, we object to this entire proceeding. These videos were obtained without proper authorization. The testimony is hearsay. Your client is facing murder charges," Vance interrupted. "Perhaps he should focus on that. That's a separate matter. It's the same matter." Vance held up a folder. Richard Prescott has spent 30 years buying silence. Settlements, NDAs, intimidation campaigns. We have documentation for all of it. We have emails proving he ordered the murder of Thomas Blackwell. We have evidence that he bribed Officer Ted Malone to bury complaints. And we have 12 families who are done being afraid. The lawyer's composure cracked. "This is a witch hunt." "No." Vance's voice was ice. "This is a reckoning." Richard Prescott rose. For the first time, his mask slipped completely. His face was flushed. His hands shook. "You people have no idea what you're doing," his voice echoed through the room. "I built this town. I funded your schools, your police, your hospitals. Without me, Ridgemont would be nothing. Without you," Marcus said calmly, 12 children wouldn't have been assaulted. A man wouldn't be dead. And my daughter wouldn't have nightmares about dying in a hallway while strangers filmed her. Your daughter is a liar. All these children are liars. You've manipulated them. We have video, Mr. Prescott. Videos can be faked. Not these. Detective Holloway stood. I've had forensic analysts verify every frame. Digital signatures match. Timestamps confirm. The evidence is genuine. Richard turned on him. "I'll have your badge." "You'll try." Holloway didn't flinch. "But I'm not Officer Malone. I don't take bribes. I don't look away. And I don't care how much money you have." The room was silent. Richard looked around, searching for allies. Finding none. The board members avoided his gaze. His lawyers were whispering urgently among themselves. Even the few supporters who'd come with him were studying the floor. For the first time in his life, Richard Prescott was alone. Lily stood up. She hadn't planned to speak again. But watching Richard deny everything, watching him try to intimidate everyone in the room, something snapped inside her. "You called me a liar," she said, her voice small but steady. "You called all of us liars. But we have the scars. We have the medical records. We have the nightmares." She walked toward him. Marcus tensed but didn't stop her. "Your son strangled me until I couldn't breathe. He beat me behind the gym until I was unconscious. He told me I was trash, that I was nothing, that nobody would believe me." She stopped 3 feet away from Richard Prescott, looked up at him with eyes that held no fear. "You know what? He was right. For a long time, nobody believed me. Teachers looked away. Police ignored me. Everyone was too scared of you to help." Richard's jaw tightened. "Little girl, I'm not finished." Her voice rose. "You spent your whole life making people afraid, buying silence, destroying anyone who stood up to you. And it worked. For 30 years, it worked. She held up her hands, showed the bruises still visible on her wrists.
But here's what you didn't count on. Some people don't stay scared. Some people fight back. Some people find each other and realize they're not alone. She gestured to the families behind her. You hurt all of us. You broke bones and burned hair and crushed spirits. But you couldn't break us. And now everyone knows what you really are. She turned and walked back to her seat. The room erupted in applause.
Margaret Stone called for order. This board will vote on immediate action. Her voice was firm now, decisive. All in favor of terminating Principal Diane Harmon's contract effective immediately. 6 hands raised. Unanimous. All in favor of referring this matter to the District Attorney for criminal prosecution of school personnel who failed to report abuse. 6 hands again. All in favor of implementing comprehensive reforms including mandatory abuse reporting, independent oversight, and victim support services. 6 hands. Margaret looked at Richard Prescott. Mr. Prescott, your family's name will be removed from all school facilities. All donations will be returned. And I personally guarantee that this board will cooperate fully with the criminal investigation. Richard's face contorted with rage. You can't do this. We just did. Margaret stood. This meeting is adjourned. Outside the building, chaos erupted. News cameras swarmed. Reporters shouted questions. Richard Prescott was led away by his lawyers, refusing to comment. Marcus stood with Lily, shielding her from the crush of media. Sarah Chen appeared at his side. How does it feel? It doesn't feel like anything yet. Marcus watched Richard's car disappear around the corner. Ask me when he's convicted. The story's going national. CNN, Fox, MSNBC, everyone wants the exclusive. Give it to them. All of it. The more people who know, the harder it is to bury. Sarah nodded. There's something else. 3 more families contacted me this morning. Victims from before the footage. Some going back 15 years. How many? At least 8, maybe more. She paused. This is bigger than anyone knew, Marcus. Richard Prescott didn't just protect his son. He ran an operation. Systematic intimidation of anyone who threatened his family's image. Marcus thought about Thomas Blackwell, about the accident that wasn't an accident. Then we expose all of it. The criminal trials began 6 weeks later. Brandon Prescott was tried as a juvenile for multiple counts of assault. The footage made conviction inevitable. He was sentenced to 3 years in juvenile detention with mandatory psychological treatment. In court, he cried, I didn't mean to hurt anyone. I was just messing around. My dad always said, Your dad isn't here to protect you anymore, the judge interrupted. And messing around doesn't leave children unconscious. Brandon's mother sat in the gallery, weeping silently. She'd filed for divorce the day after Richard's arrest. 30 years of marriage, ended by the truth she'd spent decades ignoring. Richard Prescott's trial was the spectacle everyone expected. National coverage, packed courtroom, protesters outside demanding justice. The prosecution presented overwhelming evidence. Emails, financial records, testimony from Frank Morrison, who'd taken a plea deal to avoid murder charges. He told me to make the problem go away, Morrison said on the stand. Those were his exact words. I arranged the car accident. Richard paid me $50,000. The defense tried everything. Character witnesses who spoke of Richard's charitable donations. Experts who questioned the forensic analysis. Lawyers who painted Marcus as a vigilante with a vendetta. None of it worked. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. Guilty on all counts. Murder, conspiracy, witness tampering, obstruction of justice, bribery. Sentencing: life in prison without the possibility of parole. When the verdict was read, Richard collapsed. "This isn't over," he screamed as guards hauled him away.
I built this town. I made all of you. This isn't...
The door closed behind him, and just like that, the most powerful man in Ridgemont was gone. The aftermath rolled through the town like a wave. Principal Harmon was convicted of failure to report abuse. 2 years probation, permanent revocation of her teaching license. Officer Malone pleaded guilty to corruption. 18 months in federal prison. The school district settled with all 12 families. Not for silence this time. For damages. Acknowledgement of harm. Promise of reform. New administrators were hired. Counselors were brought in. The anti-bullying policy that had been posters and empty words became real programs with real accountability. And slowly, Ridgemont began to heal. 3 months after the trials ended, Marcus received an unexpected visitor. Eleanor Prescott, Richard's wife, Brandon's mother, stood on his doorstep. She looked 20 years older than she had in court. Thin, hollow, broken. "Mrs. Prescott," Marcus didn't invite her in. "What do you want?" "I want to apologize," her voice cracked. "Not because it will change anything, not because I expect forgiveness, but because someone should say the words." Marcus studied her, saw the rings under her eyes, the tremor in her hands, the weight of decades of denial finally crushing her. "You knew what your son was doing." "I suspected. I told myself it wasn't that bad, that boys are rough, that Richard would handle it." She wiped her eyes. "I was a coward. I chose comfort over truth, and children suffered because of it." "Yes, they did." "Your daughter, Lily." Eleanor's voice broke completely. "Is she okay?" Marcus thought about his daughter, about the nightmares that came less frequently now, about the debate club she'd joined, about the smile that had started returning to her face. "She's getting there, no thanks to your family." Eleanor nodded. "I'm selling everything. The house, the company, all of it. The money will go to the victims. It won't undo what happened, but maybe..." She trailed off. "Maybe nothing." Marcus's voice was hard. "Money doesn't fix broken bones. It doesn't erase trauma. It doesn't bring back the years those kids lost to fear." I know. She took a shaky breath. "I just needed you to know that I'm sorry. Truly sorry. Not for Richard, he made his choices. But for myself. For the mother I should have been, and wasn't." She turned and walked back to her car. Marcus watched until she drove away. Lily appeared beside him. "Who was that?" About the years of suffering, the children hurt, the lives destroyed, the mother who'd looked away while her son became a monster. "No, but maybe someday I will." That night, Marcus drove to the cemetery. He hadn't been to Sarah's grave since before everything started. Now, with the trials over and justice served, he needed to talk to her. Ranger walked beside him through the quiet rows of headstones. The evening air was cool, carrying the scent of cut grass and distant rain. He knelt beside her marker, traced her name with his fingers. "We did it, Sarah. She's safe now. Really safe." The wind rustled through nearby trees, almost like an answer. "She's so much like you. Brave, stubborn, refuses to give up even when everything's against her." He smiled slightly. She stood up in that meeting and faced Richard Prescott like he was nothing. 14 years old and more courage than men twice her age. He placed a small bouquet of wildflowers against the stone. "I wish you could see her. You'd be so proud. I'm so proud." His voice caught. "I kept my promise. It took longer than it should have, but I kept it." Ranger pressed against his leg, whining softly. "I love you, Sarah. Always have, always will." He touched the stone one last time. "Rest now. She's going to be okay." He stood, walked back through the cemetery, felt something ease in his chest, a weight he'd been carrying for 8 years finally beginning to lift. The war was over. His daughter was safe. And for the first time since his wife died, Marcus Carter allowed himself to believe that everything would be all right. When he got home, Lily was waiting on the porch with 2 cups of hot chocolate.
"Thought you might want some."
She handed him a mug. "Where did you go?" "To see your mother." Lily nodded. "I've been wanting to visit too. Maybe we could go together sometime?" "I'd like that." They sat in silence, watching the stars emerge one by one. "Dad?" "Yeah?" "Thank you for believing me, for fighting for me, for not giving up even when it seemed impossible." Marcus put his arm around her, pulled her close. "That's what fathers do, sweetheart. That's what love does." "I love you, Dad." "I love you too, Lily, more than anything in this world." Ranger settled at their feet. The night wrapped around them like a blanket, and somewhere in the distance, a church bell began to toll, marking the hour, marking the passage of time, marking the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. The storm had passed, and the Carter family, battered but unbroken, was finally ready to start healing. 6 months had passed since Richard Prescott heard the word guilty. Marcus woke that morning the same way he'd woken every morning for the past several weeks, without dread. No anonymous threats, no surveillance photos, no fear of what the day might bring. Just sunlight through the window and Ranger's nose pressed against his hand. All right, I'm up." He swung his legs out of bed and checked the time. 6:47 a.m. Lily would be awake soon, getting ready for school. A school that no longer felt like a battlefield. His phone buzzed. A text from Hawk. "Job offer came through. They want you to start Monday. Congratulations, brother." Marcus read the message twice. The Veterans Community Outreach Program had been looking for someone to train service dogs for returning soldiers. Hawk had made the introduction. The interview had gone well. Now it was official. He typed back, "Tell them I'm in." Lily came out of her room at 7:15, backpack over one shoulder. She'd changed in the past 6 months. Not just physically, the bruises were long gone, but something deeper. She carried herself differently now. Shoulders back, chin up, eyes that met the world instead of avoiding it. "Morning, Dad." "Morning, sweetheart. Sleep okay?" "Actually, yeah. No dreams." She grabbed an apple from the counter. "Third night in a row." Marcus felt something warm spread through his chest. 3 nights without nightmares. 3 nights of peace. That's good. That's really good. "The therapist says it's normal, that healing isn't linear, but I'm making progress." She took a bite of the apple. "I actually believe her now." "You should. You've come a long way." Lily paused at the door. "Dad, I heard your phone buzz. Good news?" "Got the job." Her face lit up. "The dog training thing? With the veterans?" "Starts Monday." She crossed the room and hugged him tight. "I'm so proud of you." Marcus hugged her back. Thought about all the nights he'd worried about money, about the future, about whether they'd survive. Now here they were, surviving, thriving, moving forward. "I'm proud of you too, Lily." Every single day. The drive to school had become something Marcus looked forward to. Not because he was anxious, those days were over, but because it was time with his daughter, time to talk, time to connect, time to rebuild what Brandon Prescott had tried to destroy. "So," Lily said, as they pulled out of the apartment complex, "Maria asked if I wanted to come over this weekend. Her mom's making tamales." "Maria Gonzalez?" "Yeah, we've been eating lunch together. Her and Jamie and Devon." Lily smiled. "We call ourselves the Survivors Club. Sounds dramatic, but it helps." Marcus nodded slowly. The kids who'd been hurt, finding each other, supporting each other, healing together. "I think that's wonderful." "We're talking about starting a peer counseling group at school, for other kids who are going through stuff. The new principal said she'd support it." "The new principal seems like good people." "She is. She actually listens." Lily stared out the window. "It's weird. The school feels completely different now, like someone turned on a light that was off for years. That's what truth does. It illuminates." "You sound like a fortune cookie." Marcus laughed. Actually laughed. "Your mother used to say the same thing." He dropped her off at the front entrance. She climbed out, then leaned back through the window. "Dad, I love you." "Love you too, sweetheart. See you at 3. She walked toward the building, joining a stream of students. Halfway up the steps, she turned and waved. Marcus waved back, watched until she disappeared inside. Then he sat in the parking lot for a long moment, letting the reality sink in. His daughter was okay. Really, truly okay. It had taken months. It had taken therapy and patience and countless conversations. It had taken fighting a system designed to crush them. But they'd made it through. Ranger nudged his arm from the back seat. "Yeah, boy, I know." Marcus scratched behind his ears. "We did good." The Veterans Community Outreach Program operated from a converted warehouse on the edge of town. Marcus arrived at 8:30 a.m. to meet his new supervisor, Captain Robert Hayes, retired Army, 62 years old with a handshake like iron. "Marcus Carter, heard a lot about you. Good things, I hope." "The best." Hayes led him through the facility. "Hawk says you're one of the finest soldiers he ever served with. That's high praise from him." "Hawk exaggerates." "Hawk doesn't exaggerate about anything. Man has the personality of a brick wall." Hayes smiled. "Which is why I listen when he recommends someone." They walked past kennels filled with dogs in various stages of training. German Shepherds, Labradors, Belgian Malinois. Each one a potential lifeline for a veteran struggling with the invisible wounds of war. "We train service dogs for PTSD, anxiety, mobility issues. Anything our vets need." Hayes stopped at an empty kennel. "This is where you'll work. You'll have 4 dogs at a time. Training takes 6 to 8 months per animal. And then they go home with someone who needs them. Someone like you needed Ranger." Marcus thought about the years after his discharge. The nights he couldn't sleep. The sounds that triggered memories he couldn't escape. And Ranger, always there, always steady, pulling him back from the edge. "I didn't deserve that dog." "Nobody deserves anything. We earn it." Hayes clapped him on the shoulder. "Welcome to the team, Marcus. Let's save some lives." That afternoon, Marcus got a call from Sarah Chen. "Thought you'd want to know. The story won a regional journalism award." "Congratulations." "It's not about me. It's about what you did." Sarah paused. "Marcus, do you know how rare this is? Someone actually standing up to people like the Prescotts and winning? It almost never happens." "It should happen more." "That's why I'm calling. I've been contacted by 3 other communities with similar situations. Wealthy families, protected abusers, silenced victims. They want to know how you did it." Marcus leaned against his truck. "I didn't do anything special. I just refused to quit."
That's exactly what was special.
Sarah's voice softened.
Would you be willing to talk to them? Share what you learned?
What would I even say?
The truth? That it's possible. That one person with courage can change everything.
She paused.
You gave 12 families hope, Marcus. You could give a lot more.
He thought about it, about the nights he'd spent wondering if any of it would make a difference, about the moments he'd almost given up. Yeah, I'll talk to them. 2 weeks into his new job, Marcus found his rhythm. The dogs responded to him instantly. Something about the way he moved, the steadiness of his voice, the calm authority he projected. They trusted him the way soldiers trusted their commanding officers. "You're a natural," Hayes observed one afternoon. "Most trainers take months to build that rapport. You do it in days." Dogs are honest. They don't pretend. They don't manipulate. They just are. That's why they're better therapists than most humans. Marcus was working with a young German shepherd named Scout when his phone rang. Vance. "Good news! The last of the civil settlements came through. All 12 families are compensated." "How much?" "Enough that Jamie Henderson's parents can afford his college. Enough that Maria Gonzalez can get reconstructive surgery. Enough that these kids have a future." Marcus felt something ease in his chest. "And Eleanor Prescott?" "She followed through, sold everything. The foundation she created will fund victim services for years." Vance paused. "I never thought I'd say this about a Prescott, but she's trying to make amends." "Does it matter? Trying?" "It matters to the people she helps. That's all that counts." Jamie Henderson came by the training facility that Saturday. He was 14 now, glasses still taped, but worn with pride instead of shame. His mother had called ahead, asking if Marcus would mind. "I wanted to see what you do," Jamie said, watching Scout run through an obstacle course. "My therapist says animals help with trauma." "They do. Dogs especially." "How?" Marcus knelt beside Scout. The dog immediately pressed against his leg. "They don't judge. They don't ask questions. They just offer unconditional love." He scratched Scout's ears. "When I came back from overseas, I couldn't sleep. Couldn't be around people. Couldn't function. Ranger saved me." "The dog you had at school that day?" "Yeah. He's been with me for 7 years." Jamie watched Scout with something like longing. "I've been having nightmares. About Brandon. About the locker room." "That's normal. Your brain is processing trauma." "Will it ever stop?" Marcus thought about his own nightmares, the ones that had faded over years but never completely disappeared. "It gets better. The dreams come less often. The fear loses its grip." He met Jamie's eyes. "But you have to let people help you. You can't fight alone." "Like how you helped us?" "I didn't help alone either. I had Hawk, Vance, Sarah, Detective Holloway. I had your parents and all the other families." Marcus stood. "Nobody wins alone, Jamie. We survive together." That evening, Marcus and Lily visited Sarah's grave together. It was the first time Lily had been there since the trials ended. She'd asked to wait until she felt ready. Now she knelt beside the headstone, tracing her mother's name with her fingertips. "Hi, Mom. It's been a while." Marcus stood back, giving her space. "Dad and I are doing better, really better. He got a new job training dogs. I'm getting good grades. I even joined the debate team." She laughed softly. "Can you believe that? Me, arguing in front of people." "You probably could believe it. You always said I had strong opinions." She was quiet for a moment. "I wish you could have been there. When I stood up to Mr. Prescott at the meeting, I was so scared, Mom. But I kept thinking about what Dad said, that you were the bravest person he ever knew. I wanted to be brave like you."
Tears slipped down her cheeks. I miss you every day. But I'm okay now, I promise. Dad kept his promise too. He protected me.
Just like you knew he would. She kissed her fingers and pressed them to the stone. I love you, Mom. Always. Marcus stepped forward and helped her stand. They held each other in the fading light, surrounded by silence and memory and love that death couldn't diminish. She heard you, Marcus said quietly. You think so? I know so. 3 months later, the Survivors Club held its first official meeting. 27 students attended. Some had been bullied. Some had been abused. Some simply felt alone in a world that didn't seem to understand them. Lily stood at the front of the room, nervous but determined. My name is Lily Carter. 6 months ago, I was strangled in the hallway of this school while 30 people filmed it. She paused. I thought I was alone. I thought nobody would believe me. I thought I'd have to suffer in silence forever. She looked at the faces watching her, some scared, some curious, all hurting. I was wrong. When I finally told my dad what was happening, everything changed. Not overnight, not easily, but it changed. She held up her hand, the one Brandon had grabbed, the one with scars that had faded but never quite disappeared. These scars remind me of what I survived, but they also remind me that survival is possible. Maria Gonzalez stood beside her, Jamie Henderson, Devin Williams, the other kids who had been Prescott's victims. We're here because we know what it's like to feel helpless, Maria said. And we're here to tell you that you don't have to feel that way. If someone is hurting you, tell someone, Jamie added. If they don't listen, tell someone else. Keep telling until someone does. You are not alone, Lily finished. You never were. Sometimes you just have to find your people. The room was silent. Then a girl in the back row raised her hand. I've never told anyone this, but my stepbrother... She couldn't finish. She didn't have to. Lily crossed the room and sat beside her. It's okay. We're listening. That night, Marcus received a letter, handwritten, no return address. Postmarked from the state penitentiary. He almost threw it away. Then he opened it. Mr. Carter, I don't expect you to read this. I wouldn't read it if I were you. But I need to say it anyway. I've spent the last 6 months thinking about what I did. Not just the crimes I was convicted of, though those are enough, but the choices I made for 30 years. The children I allowed to be hurt. The lives I destroyed to protect my name. I told myself it was business, that everyone cuts corners, that my son was just spirited, and the other kids were weak. I told myself whatever lies I needed to sleep at night. I don't sleep anymore. Your daughter stood up in that meeting and looked me in the eye. A 14-year-old girl with bruises on her throat, and she wasn't afraid of me. In that moment, I saw myself the way the world sees me. A monster. I can't undo what I did. It was a father who refused to look away. It was truth, spoken at last, into a silence that had lasted far too long. Sometimes miracles don't arrive with thunder or flames from the sky. Sometimes they walk quietly into a hallway, wearing a Navy uniform, carrying nothing but love and a promise that will never be broken. God does not always remove the storm, but He places strength inside ordinary people so they can walk through it without breaking. When we choose truth over silence, compassion over fear, and protection over indifference, we become part of that miracle. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs hope today. Leave a comment with your prayer or where you're watching from. Subscribe for more stories of faith, courage, and redemption. May God bless you, protect your family, and remind you always you are never alone
and justice belongs to anyone brave enough to demand it.